Hi everybody, this is Brian Koo with another ROK video. And did you know that there is now a real-time scoreboard that tracks the kill points and healing done by every player in a Lost Kingdom as the Lost Kingdom is going on? Didn't know about it? Well, let me show you. Here we have the Autarch Point Leaderboard. And while I don't know if this is exactly in real time, this does get updated pretty frequently as the fighting goes on and even after the fighting slows down. When Zone 5 was over in our current KvK, I was in 99th place on the Autarch Point Leaderboard. Somewhere along the way in these down days, someone else passed me, and so I'm now in 100th place in kill points. But what you can now track during a KvK is you can track your own kill points. You can track the kill points of the top 100. You can track the death points of the top 100, which ranks people by how many dead troops they have taken. And you can track the healing of the top 100 and of yourself based on how much healing a city has done over the course of the war. Now, the scoring system here is important to point out. In the kill point category, if you severely wound or kill a tier 4 unit, you get 1 point. Whereas if you severely wound or kill a tier 5 unit, you get 5 points. And so attacking tier 5 troops rewards you much more handsomely than attacking tier 4 troops. In the opposite way, on the healing point leaderboard, if you heal a tier 4 unit, you get 1 point, whereas if you heal a tier 5 unit, you get 5 points. And so for a player like myself, who I actually felt that I had a very negative ratio in this Zone 5 fight based on my trades, I think my ratio looks better because of the fact that I was using a decent amount of tier 4, and therefore my healing score is lower because I was healing a decent amount of tier 4 compared to some of these top whales who are only healing tier 5, and therefore they're getting a lot more heal points than I am. But this is a very, very interesting scoreboard to have. This is honestly a pretty big change to the game, in my opinion, that we can track these things as the KvK goes along. And there are some very interesting ratios to look at after the Zone 5 fight in our KvK. For example, the top kill point player, Tiger from our enemies, 2975, he has 460 million kill points and only 260 million healing points. That gives him a 176% ratio between kill points and heal points. There are a number of other interesting ratios which I will show to you now. Now, from our allies, the top KP achiever was a Peach from 1486. A Peach achieved a 92.8% ratio in the Zone 5 war. The famous player Arvix from 2975 achieved a 208% ratio during the Zone 5 war. Another leader and sometimes king of 2975, Null Prime, achieved a 167% ratio. And the king of 2975, Jihan Kane, achieved a 139% ratio in Zone 5. Now on our side, two of our top performers and best fighters traditionally were Uni, who achieved a flat 100, actually he achieved a 101% ratio rounding up, and then Benny, our longtime friend Benny from 1486, achieved a 120% ratio. Now, from the YouTuber group, Dirty Dan from 2975 achieved a very impressive 158% ratio, while I achieved a very modest 90% ratio on my Zone 5 fighting. If you go back into the leaderboard here, you can see that 2975 actually has the top 5 in kill points, but only 2 of the top 5 in heal points, which does go to show, just like those ratios showed, that they definitely out-traded us in the open field in this zone. You can see Dirty Dan here in 32nd place overall in kill points in Zone 5. Now, what I will point out at this point, because I think I just don't want this to be misleading at all, is that even though our enemies had a much better ratio in open field trades than we did, we actually won this zone very, very easily. This thing was over within 12 hours. Within 30 hours, we had completely pushed them out of the zone. I don't believe our enemies got a single positive trade on their rallies, and we not only outbuilt them and outstrategized them, but we also had a number of positive trades on our rallies. So I think that one of the things that this real-time scoreboard does is it creates a teamwork, it further increases the teamwork arbitrage in Rise of Kingdoms Wars. Now, what do I mean by teamwork arbitrage? Well, arbitrage is a term that refers to the difference between what should be and what is. So in finance, an arbitrage is when the price of an asset on one market is different than the price on another market, and the arbitrage is that gap between those two prices. And so I think so an arbitrage is sort of like a thing that you can take advantage of, right? You can arbitrage an advantage in certain cases. And so I think that what this does is it allows players who are very team-oriented and who really are objective focused and winning the KvK focus, it gives those players and those teams the opportunity to have even more of an advantage in achieving their win condition. Because I think for a lot of players who are not focused on the win condition, who are more focused on their own stats, on their own trades, I think those players are just going to be even further incentivized to care about themselves via a leaderboard like this. I mean, this leaderboard can be really motivating or really depressing depending on, the quality of the trade that you're getting. And this is also an incredible way to talk trash to your opponents and to brag about how good you are at the game. Before a leaderboard like this, what would happen is that whales, like for example, Leopard and Baba TC Ataturk, when they wanted to settle who was the stronger account, they would bring out their 7 marches in the field and they would fight to see who won the 7 versus 7 fight. That's how they settled things. But look at how much better you can settle the question of who is the better player with these kind of leaderboards. I mean, you can literally say, listen, Jerky, let's see who has more kill points after the 5-day war we're about to have. And, even if one player happens to have more points, if their ratio of kill points to heal points is way less impressive than the other person, then that other person, will probably still have the bragging rights, even if they lost out on just the total kill points done here. And in the same way, if you're just someone who talks a lot in LKC and wants people to know how good you are, you can point out where you are on this leaderboard as the KvK is going on. in the past, for a long time, we didn't have leaderboards at all in Rise of Kingdoms. And then for a brief moment of time, we could see the leaderboards at the end of the KvK when everything had been settled. But now we can see leaderboards as the war is going on. And so I think that's going to generate a lot of opportunities for people to brag. It's going to generate a lot of opportunities for people to have more status in terms of how good they are at this game. And I think it's going to motivate people or incentivize people to fight in a more selfish way where they really do focus on their own trades. Because one thing that I did do in this Zone 5 fight is I really tried to be at the front lines. I really tried to attack the toughest enemy marches that had the strength and the bravery to fight right at the very front. My attitude is that when players get pulled deep into your lines, that we inevitably have many players who are going to be able to get those kill points, who are going to be able to do the damage to those marches that will knock those marches into sad face status. And so for me, where I do, I feel like I do have pretty good control of my marches. I don't have the greatest gear or anything, but I do have, or the greatest crystal tech, but I do have good control. I really try to fight at the front of the ball because I just think that is the thing that will help our team win fights the most. Now, I may be wrong about that because I think we were probably like better at fighting at the front of our ball, and I think our enemies were very, very good at running away when they were targeted. So, maybe the way I'm thinking about this is not quite correct, but I do think that in, let's say, a normal war, I do think it's correct to just be very aggressive, be at the front, and be unselfish in the way that you're fighting, even if that makes your own trades worse, right? I think that there is a world where people can not care about their trades, fight in the way that is best for their team, and win the war because of that unselfish play. And so I try to set an example for my teammates by fighting in that sort of way. And it may make me look bad on these leaderboards, and it also may make me look bad in terms of the autarch ratio at the end of a Lost Kingdom. Now, I think something worth noting is that it appears to me that the way the statistics are calculated for this autarch ratio is actually the complete opposite of how the stats are calculated for the autarch leaderboard. Because if I'm just looking at this on a very basic level, this says most units killed and most units healed. And based on this like very unclear number, it appears that they are not making a distinction between tier 1, tier 4, or tier 5 troops here. It looks like they are just looking at how many units are killed. And in the same way, in terms of healing your hospital, they are also just looking at how many units you've healed. And so a T4 heal is worth the same as a tier 5 heal because 1 equals 1. It's just they're equivalent numbers. If you heal 1 T4 troop, it gets added to this number. And if you heal 1 T5 troop, it also gets added to this number. So I think that's interesting as well. And I do think that can affect the stats a little bit of what we're looking at here. It's possible that our team was fighting against more tier 4 due to the fact that one of the kingdoms in the Earth Camp is a very, very young kingdom, Kingdom 3105. And so it is possible that this kingdom has a lot of tier 4, which was hurting our kill point score. It's also possible that we have more T5. I mean, we might have more tier 5 than their camp, but I don't think we have more tier 5 than 2975. So at the top end of this leaderboard, I don't think that's affecting the results. I think pretty much all these players at the top are just running full tier 5. But the kill point score can be a little bit affected by how many tier 4 troops you're severely wounding. And maybe your kill points are going to be a little bit lower if you're fighting against a lot of tier 4. But ultimately, I think this is good for the game. I think this sort of transparency and data is very good for the game. It certainly opened my eyes to how that Zone 5 fight went, where I knew I was trading badly, but I didn't realize how badly my teammates were also trading. Some of my teammates have really bad ratios, and when some of our very best fighters only have 101% ratios, that means that we definitely had some trouble in the open field against this very, very, very whaley opponent. But I think the transparency is good. I think having these numbers gives us a more clear picture about what happened in a war. And I think that's very important in a war like we're fighting now, because it has been a weird war so far. And my guess is that it is only going to get weirder. You know, when you think about the strange diplomacy that the two Vietnamese camps did, where they seemingly pre-allied, they talked down each other's abilities. They claimed that certain players would migrate out, and then those players did not migrate out. And then how weird this Zone 5 went, where we dominated them on the map. We absolutely dominated them. We took this zone over very, very quickly. And yet they out-traded us in the open field. And so what does that mean? Does that mean that we are that we are really smart when it comes to strategy and building and rallying and garrisoning, but we're complete idiots when it comes to the open field? Or we're like these uncoordinated boomers with bad reflexes when it comes to the open field? And does it mean that our opponents are idiots when it comes to strategy, idiots when it comes to building, idiots when it comes to working together, but they're absolute geniuses when it comes to the open field? I mean, is that what it means? Does it mean that their accounts are stronger than ours, but they somehow lost anyway? I mean, maybe it just means that they spent more on Crystal Tech than we did, and the bulk of their open field fighting was done by those whales who had spent so much on Crystal Tech. I just think this war is going to get weird. I think there are many wars in this game that are weird. And I do think that this transparency is helpful, right? It's helpful. It's not going to tell us everything, but it helps to see what happened on the field in a numerical way. And it encourages the selfish KP chasers to be even more selfish and to chase KP even more. And as someone who is out here trying to win KvKs and could honestly care less about what my ratio is as long as we win, that is completely fine with me. Throw a like on this video if you've made it this far. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Almost 70% of you are not subscribed to my channel. Go ahead and help yourself and help the YouTube algorithm give you the content that you most want by subscribing to my channel. I'm not saying this to help me, of course. I don't, if you subscribe to me, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying this to help yourself. Subscribe to my channel. It'll help your YouTube experience be better. You'll get to see more of my videos. And until next time, I will see you all on the flip side.